Why did she always sit facing the door? No one ever asked out loud, but everyone wondered. 8 months, same stool, same meal, same quiet ritual at a diner that time forgot. Her name was Merrick Thorne, though no one used it. Around here, she was just the woman with the limp, the one who never smiled, the one who watched everything. The neon outside flickered against rain-slick asphalt, washing the cracked parking lot in pulses of red and blue. A lone truck passed, headlights smearing through the wet glass like ghosts. Inside, the hum of old fluorescent lights matched the rhythm of the storm, tired, uneven, yet refusing to die. Merrick sat with military posture, back straight, eyes level, her hands scarred, steady, moved with mechanical precision as she ate her meal, meatloaf, potatoes, green beans, none of it touching. It wasn't about the food. It was about control, routine, the one thing she could still own. Her left leg, the one that dragged slightly when she walked, extended awkwardly beneath the counter. Beneath the fabric of her jeans, a miracle of steel and nerve endings connected her body to something far more than a prosthetic. But no one here knew that. They just saw the limp. The waitress, Juniper Reeves, refilled her coffee without asking. They'd done this dance for months. No small talk, no questions, just quiet understanding. Juniper had the eyes of someone who'd seen more than a small-town life allowed. Maybe that's why she never asked. Maybe she already knew not to. "Quiet night," Juniper murmured. Merrick nodded once. "Storms keep people home." That was all. At the other end of the counter, a new waitress, barely 19, nervous, still smelling like optimism, whispered, "Why does she always face the door?" Juniper didn't answer, just muttered, "Some habits don't break easy." The girl didn't get it. She would, one day. Outside, the wind carried a low growl of thunder. Inside, the woman at the counter kept drawing in her small, leather-bound notebook. Technical sketches, not art. Precision lines, figures, notations. It looked like blueprints for something beyond civilian understanding. Then another sound broke the rhythm. Engines. 7 of them. Motorcycles approaching fast. The kind of sound that made small-town windows tremble. Merrick's fork froze halfway to her lips. She exhaled slowly, set it down, and turned her wrist slightly, enough for her black, unmarked watch to catch the light. A faint red indicator glowed once, then went still. Juniper noticed. Of course she did. "You might want to step out back," Juniper said quietly, wiping the same spot on the counter twice. Merrick's eyes didn't move from the window. Trouble finds its own way in. And right on cue, the diner door burst open. Leather denim, boots dripping rain. 7 men swaggered in like they owned the place. The Ravagers, a local biker gang that played outlaw on weekends and worked construction on weekdays. Loud, drunk, and looking for something to break. "Goddamn weather," their leader barked, shaking water from his jacket. "Juniper, coffee all around and make it Irish." His name was Drake Harlow. Ex-military, though no one ever confirmed how he left the service. Maybe he quit. Maybe they let him go. Either way, the discipline was gone, replaced by cheap bravado and a thirst for control. He spotted Merrick almost immediately. "What do we have here?" he said, smirking. "Soldier girl, huh? You guarding the ketchup." The others laughed, too loud, always too loud. Merrick didn't respond. She just kept sketching. The silence got under his skin. Drake walked closer. Each heavy step echoed in the small space. He bumped her shoulder hard enough to spill her coffee. "Didn't see you there," he mocked. "What's your deal, huh? Too good to talk to people." She reached for a napkin, wiped the spill, calm. Not a word. The diner fell silent, tension thick as oil. Even the rain outside seemed to hold its breath. "Asked you a question," Drake said, leaning in. "What unit were you with?" "Still nothing." He laughed, but it sounded forced now. "Guess not all soldiers see action, huh? Some just sit behind desks, polishing metals." A flicker passed through Merrick's eyes, something dark and tired. Not anger, not fear, just inevitability. Then Drake's second-in-command, Axel, spotted the notebook. "What's this?" he said, reaching for it. "Battle plans." Her hand moved faster than his eyes could track. The book snapped shut before his fingers touched the leather. Axel froze. He hadn't even seen her move. Drake grinned, sensing weakness where there was none. "Come on, sweetheart, lighten up. We're just asking a few questions." But she wasn't listening anymore. Her eyes had changed, calculating, cold, measuring every angle of the room. Exits, distances, timing. Drake reached again, this time for her wrist. "Don't," she said. The single word carried more command than his entire body language. He hesitated, surprised by the tone. Then smirked. "And what was my first mistake? Walking through that door." Silence. Even his men shifted uneasily. They couldn't explain why their leader's confidence suddenly seemed misplaced. Drake laughed again, too loud. "Pretty bold, soldier girl, you think you're scary?" He leaned closer. "You gonna call for backup, airstrike on Juniper's diner?" Merrick said nothing. She just reached for her coffee again, steady hand, calm eyes. The lack of reaction broke something in him. He slammed his palm down on the counter. "I'm talking to you." Juniper moved fast for her age, stepping between them. "That's enough, Drake. She's done nothing to you." He shoved her gently aside, but it was enough to cross a line. Merrick's right hand rested flat on the counter. Her watch pulsed once. A faint vibration hummed under her skin, subtle, invisible but real. "Move aside," she said softly. Drake grabbed her sleeve, pulling it up before she could stop him. "Let's see what kind of patch you're hiding." The fabric tore, revealing not a tattoo, not a scar, but something in between. Black and silver lines forming a phoenix surrounded by what looked like circuitry, etched directly into her skin. The laughter stopped, even the bikers stared. Juniper's voice trembled just slightly. "You don't know who she is." Drake chuckled, though the sound was hollow. "Then why don't you tell me?" Merrick finally looked up, gray eyes cold. "You've got 20 minutes before this place gets real crowded." Lark, the smallest biker, blinked, pale suddenly. "Drake," he muttered, "maybe we should go." Drake barked out a laugh. "Go from who? You think she's got a Navy SEAL team on speed dial? Look around, genius, this is the middle of nowhere." Merrick didn't answer. She just checked her watch. A tiny red light blinked once, then again. Somewhere out there, a signal had been sent. She took another sip of coffee, calm, waiting. Drake smirked, though his eyes betrayed uncertainty. "Nice bluff, soldier girl, real nice." He turned toward the door, tossing a mocking salute. "If your imaginary friends show up, tell them the Ravagers said hello." The bell above the door jingled as they left, laughter trailing into the rain. Juniper stood frozen, staring at Merrick. "Should I call someone?" "Already done." The watch blinked again, steady this time. Outside, 7 motorcycles idled beneath the flickering neon. The gang lingered, trading jokes, pretending they weren't nervous. Inside, Merrick sat back down, smoothed her sleeve, and reopened her notebook as if nothing had happened. Juniper's voice trembled just slightly. "Who are you?" Merrick didn't look up. Just someone trying to stay forgotten. But the watch on her wrist pulsed like a heartbeat, counting down. 19 minutes, 37 seconds. Whatever she had called was already on its way. 19 minutes and 37 seconds. That's what the red light on her watch whispered. Each pulse soft, steady, like a distant heartbeat counting down to something inevitable. Most people inside the diner had no idea what that meant. But Juniper Reeves wasn't most people. She'd noticed things, the way Merrick's eyes always tracked the exits, the subtle way her hand brushed her left thigh before standing, the precision in her every move. Those weren't habits of an ordinary veteran. They were scars of someone who had survived places where seconds decided whether you lived or died. Juniper didn't ask questions. She just started closing early. "Ren," she called to the young waitress in the back, "you can clock out." The girl peeked out, nervous. "What about the customers?" "Not your concern tonight," Juniper said quietly. "Go home." Ren hesitated. "It's pouring out." Juniper exhaled, pulled keys from her apron and tossed them. "Take my car." "But your car in the shop," Ren said, confused. Juniper froze for a fraction of a second, then smiled thinly. "Right, then wait in the kitchen, lock the door behind you." Ren didn't argue after that. Outside, the Ravagers were still there. 7 men pretending to be fearless while checking the darkness too often. Their laughter was forced now. Their voices slightly too loud, the sound of men trying to convince themselves they weren't worried about the woman inside. Drake paced in the rain, pretending to smoke though the cigarette had gone out long ago. "She's bluffing," he muttered half to himself. "There's no one coming." But one of his men, Lark, couldn't shake what he'd seen. That insignia, the circuit lines, the phoenix. He'd seen it once before, buried deep in a combat report that wasn't meant for civilian eyes. He didn't tell Drake. Drake never listened anyway. Inside, Merrick had returned to her notebook. Her pen moved calmly across the page, drawing precise diagrams that only she could understand. Blueprints, not of weapons but of something more intimate, something personal. Her prosthetic leg reimagined, redefined, improved. Every stroke was a refusal to be broken. Juniper moved quietly behind the counter, locking drawers that didn't belong in a diner. Not cash, not silverware. Something else, cold metal beneath false bottoms and worn paper menus. She sat down beside Merrick, her voice low. "They're not leaving." "They will," Merrick said softly, eyes on her watch. "When it's time." "Who's coming?" Juniper asked. Merrick didn't answer immediately. She closed her notebook, set it gently on the counter, and finally looked up. "Not friends," she said. "Just people who don't ignore distress signals." Juniper studied her. "You've been signaling this whole time." 8 months, Merrick replied. "Recovery undercover, the diner was quiet enough. Too quiet, maybe." Juniper frowned. "And now?" Merrick glanced toward the window, where the reflections of rain streaked like veins across the glass. "Now it's loud again." Outside, Drake slammed his fist against the door. The sound made Ren flinch from behind the kitchen wall. "Hey," he shouted. "Juniper, since when do you close before midnight? We're not done talking to your customer." Juniper didn't move. Merrick didn't even blink. Drake gestured to Axel, who reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a tire iron, the kind of blunt persuasion men like him resorted to when words ran out. "Don't think we're kidding," he shouted, striking the glass with the flat of the metal. The window shuddered but held. Merrick's eyes flicked to her watch again. 5 minutes. Juniper's hand slipped beneath the counter, where a hidden latch clicked faintly, a sound swallowed by the rain. "Back up," Juniper whispered. But Merrick didn't move. She just stood, adjusted her jacket, and walked toward the door. The limp was still there, but it didn't slow her. Every step was measured, balanced, controlled. When she reached the entrance, she unlatched the lock and pulled the door open. The sudden wash of rain and cold air filled the diner like an uninvited guest. Drake froze. He hadn't expected her to actually open it. "Well," he said, laughing nervously, "seems soldier girl found her manners." Merrick stepped out just enough that the light hit her face, calm, unreadable, unmoved. 20 minutes, she said again. "I told you." "Still playing games," Drake scoffed. "You think someone coming to rescue you out here. This is the edge of nowhere." She looked past him, out toward the empty highway. 3 minutes, 14 seconds. He blinked. "What?" Her tone didn't change. "That's when it gets crowded." The others shifted, glancing toward the road. Nothing but rain, no headlights, no sound but the storm. "What exactly's gonna happen in 3 minutes?" Drake asked, his confidence thinning. Merrick turned her back on him and walked back inside. That small act, turning her back, cut deeper than any insult could. Drake followed, anger chasing fear. His boots left wet prints on the floor as his men trailed behind, their earlier swagger now uneasy. Inside, the diner lights buzzed overhead, flickering slightly, as if even the electricity could feel the tension. "Think you're clever," Drake hissed. "You gonna stand there counting seconds till we—" He stopped, because she was smiling. Not wide, not mocking, just the faint, knowing kind of smile that people wear when they've already seen the outcome. "2 minutes," she said. Juniper's hand hovered near the counter latch again. The hum of fluorescent lights seemed to grow louder. Lark, standing in the doorway, couldn't look away from Merrick's eyes. They were too calm, too certain. Drake lunged forward, reaching for her shoulder. "Look at me when I'm—" In a single, fluid motion, Merrick turned. Not violently, just fast, impossibly fast for someone with a limp. She guided his arm past her with the smallest shift of weight. He stumbled, nearly hitting the counter. For a heartbeat, the room froze. Lark recognized the movement, a maneuver only special operations training taught. Minimal force, maximum control. The mark of someone who had spent years surviving chaos without drawing attention to it. Drake straightened, furious. "You think you can?" "1 minute," she said. Outside, the storm began to change. The rain no longer masked the sound. Something deeper now, lower, rhythmic. Engines, but not motorcycles. Juniper's eyes widened. "That's—" Merrick nodded once. "Them." Drake turned toward the window just as the headlights appeared. Not one, not two, but a line of them. SUVs, black, moving in tight formation. And behind them, 2 military-grade Humvees, engines growling through the rain like beasts unchained. The Ravagers backed away from the glass instinctively. "What the hell is that?" Axel whispered. The vehicles didn't stop at the road. They turned directly into the diner's lot, tires cutting through water and gravel. In seconds, the small parking area was surrounded. Doors opened in unison. 6 men in civilian clothes stepped out. No uniforms, no markings. But their stance, their eyes, their synchronized movements unmistakable. Operators. Real ones. They spread in a perimeter without a word, scanning the area, covering angles with a precision that no amount of drunken bravado could ever fake. Drake stumbled back, color draining from his face. One of the men, older, scar tracing his jaw, stepped through the diner door. His eyes swept the room once, then stopped on Merrick. "Where is she?" he asked. Merrick stood right here. The air itself seemed to change. The 6 operators snapped to attention instantly, posture straight, eyes sharp. Drake whispered hoarsely, Who are you?" No one answered him. But the silence told him everything. The man with the scar gave a short nod. "Commander Thorne," he said with quiet authority. "Zodiac Protocol is active." Juniper exhaled, almost relieved but also afraid. "They found the facility, didn't they?" Merrick's expression didn't change. She just nodded once. "Time up." Drake Harlow had seen soldiers before. But never like this. They didn't speak. They didn't shout. They moved like a single thought, 6 men, armed with nothing visible yet radiating danger like heat. Even their eyes didn't wander. Every gesture was efficient, deliberate, rehearsed in the kind of silence that comes only from shared battlefields. Rain hissed against the windows as the leader, the man with the scar, stepped forward. "Commander Thorne," he said again, "we have limited time." Juniper's breath caught at that word, commander. She turned slowly toward Merrick. The limp, the quiet, the meticulous sketches, they all rearranged in her mind until the image of a broken veteran became something else entirely. Someone who wasn't hiding weakness, but waiting for orders. Merrick didn't blink. Status. Zodiac protocol confirmed, the man replied. Facility breach at 0200. Command requests immediate extraction. Merrick nodded once, calm, as though the world hadn't just tilted. Across the room, Drake's bravado evaporated. His voice shrank. "Commander," he whispered, "you're kidding." Nobody answered him. Outside, more headlights cut through the rain. Black SUVs and Humvees sealed the road in both directions. The din of diesel engines and radios blended into a steady heartbeat of power. Inside the diner, time split in two, the world of ordinary people and the world Merrick belonged to. She straightened, her limp almost imperceptible now. The posture returned, the kind that made men stand up without knowing why. For the first time, her presence filled the room completely. The leader turned to the others. Secure perimeter, civilian containment. They moved instantly, fanning out with silent efficiency. 2 at the door, 1 sweeping the rear kitchen, another scanning the windows. Their formation was flawless, not defensive but protective. Protective of her. Drake took a step back, colliding with a booth. His voice trembled. "Who are you people?" Juniper finally spoke, her voice lower than before. "The kind you never want to meet after dark." Merrick's gray eyes shifted toward Drake. Not angry, not gloating, just assessing the way you study weather before a storm. "I told you to leave," she said softly. He swallowed hard. I didn't know." "No," she replied, "you didn't want to." A beat passed, heavy, final. The leader gestured toward her. "Extraction window closes in 3 minutes, ma'am. We need to move." Merrick gathered her notebook, slid it into her jacket, and turned to Juniper. "Lock the diner after we're gone. Wipe everything." Juniper nodded once, no hesitation. Already done. The ease between them said everything. This wasn't a waitress and a customer. This was coordination, 2 professionals hiding in plain sight. Drake's men, the Ravagers, pressed themselves against the far wall, eyes wide, soaked and silent. Lark, the smallest, whispered, "Drake, she's real. I told you she was real." Drake didn't answer. His world had no words for this kind of reckoning. The scarred commander's voice cut through the tension. "Convoys ready." Merrick started toward the door, the limp more pronounced now that the adrenaline was fatting. Juniper caught her sleeve briefly. "You're still healing." "Not tonight," Merrick replied. Her tone wasn't defiance, just truth. Drake stepped forward, half pleading, half desperate. "Look, I didn't mean." She stopped, turned. The room seemed to hold its breath. "Next time," she said, "pick a different target." No threat, no anger, just a verdict. And somehow that was worse. The team formed around her as she exited, a protective orbit. Outside, rain streaked down the black SUVs, catching the neon reflections of the Last Stop Diner sign as it flickered one last time. Engines roared to life, synchronized and controlled. Drake followed to the doorway, drawn by disbelief. Through the rain-blurred glass, he saw men move like a living machine, every motion purposeful. When the last operator opened the door for Merrick, Drake caught sight of something that made his stomach twist. Each vehicle carried an emblem, not painted, but embossed into metal, a phoenix rising from circuitry. The same pattern burned into Merrick's arm. The symbol wasn't military, it was something older. A project, a ghost unit. Merrick paused before entering the SUV. She turned her head slightly, rain tracing down the curve of her jaw. For a brief second, her gaze met Drake through the window. No hatred, no triumph, only the quiet weight of someone who had seen too much. Then the door shut. Engines revved, synchronized like heartbeats. The convoy rolled out, tires cutting through puddles, headlights slicing the storm. Within seconds, they were gone, swallowed by the darkness beyond the diner's neon glow. Silence returned, broken only by the fatting echo of engines and the steady patter of rain. Drake stood frozen, hands trembling. "What just happened?" he whispered. No one answered. Juniper wiped a coffee mug with a towel that shook only slightly. Lark stepped forward, his voice unsteady but certain. "You don't remember, do you, Drake? Baghdad, Kandahar, the reports, Phantom 6. Drake's head snapped toward him. "That's classified nonsense. Rumors. They said she saved an entire unit when air support failed. Walked back through enemy fire after losing her leg." Lark's eyes met his leader's. "You mocked that." Drake sank into the nearest booth, face pale under the flickering lights. "She could have killed us." Juniper looked at him, voice soft but razor-sharp. "She didn't need to. Some lessons hit harder when you survive them." Outside, the rain began to ease. The neon sign steadied. For the first time all night, the storm seemed to let go. Merrick Thorne was gone. But her presence lingered in the silence, in the fear, in the strange reverence that now filled the small diner. Juniper turned the open sign to closed. Then with slow precision she flipped a hidden switch beneath the counter. The hum of electronics died one by one. Somewhere behind the walls, a faint click echoed, the sound of systems shutting down. Whatever this diner had been, it wasn't anymore. Drake finally found his voice again. "You said wipe everything. What does that mean?" Juniper didn't look at him. "It means this never happened." Her tone left no room for argument. Outside, the Ravagers' motorcycles sat abandoned in the rain, engines cold, paint glinting faintly in the dawn light. None of the men moved to retrieve them. Drake stared out the window, seeing not the road but the memory of headlights vanishing into darkness. He whispered, "She said 20 minutes. Juniper nodded faintly, and she was right. She walked to the counter where Merrick had sat every night for 8 months. Her hand rested on the stool, the faintest smile ghosting across her face, pride, sorrow, maybe both. "She never misses her mark," Juniper murmured, "even when she's not aiming." For a long moment no one spoke. The storm drifted east, leaving the air heavy and clean. And then faintly, almost too distant to be real, a new sound carried through the morning air. The deep, rhythmic thump of rotor blades. Drake looked up, eyes wide. "Is that?" Juniper didn't answer. She just poured herself a fresh cup of coffee. "Some people call for help," she said softly. "Others are the help." The helicopter swept past the diner, low and fast, vanishing toward the horizon where the convoy had gone. And just like that, it was over. Or maybe it was only beginning. The road unspooled beneath the convoy, like a ribbon of wet glass. Rain traced streaks across the windshield, blurring the world into ghostly reflections of passing light. Inside the lead vehicle, Merrick Thorne sat silent. Her face, half illuminated by the dim dashboard glow, revealed nothing. Not the pain, not the exhaustion, not the storm behind her eyes. No one in the SUV spoke. They didn't need to. In their world, silence was communication, and everyone here understood who she was. The operator in the passenger seat broke the quiet first. "Extraction complete," he said into his comm. "Primary assets secured. No civilian casualties." From the backseat, Commander Vance, the scarred man, watched her closely. Not with pity, not even with admiration, with respect. The kind given to people who have earned it through fire. Merrick didn't look up from her watch. The red light had stopped blinking. Signal complete. "Time to location?" she asked quietly. 6 minutes, Vance replied. "Good." That one word carried more weight than most conversations. Outside, the black SUVs moved with military precision, maintaining perfect distance between vehicles. No sirens, no lights, just purpose. Behind them, the rain had washed away every trace of the diner. Almost every trace. Merrick's reflection in the window stared back at her, faint, fragile. The faint outline of the phoenix insignia on her forearm glimmered under the flicker of lightning. Black and silver lines, merging the organic with the engineered. She turned her wrist slightly, feeling the faint hum beneath her skin. The technology responded to her thoughts, alive, intuitive, integrated. Her left leg, the prosthetic, adjusted its grip as she shifted position. It wasn't pain she felt anymore. It was memory, the phantom ache of a life left behind. "Commander," Vance said quietly, "you shouldn't have stayed that long in cover." Merrick's eyes flicked to him. "You're suggesting I should have run sooner." "I'm suggesting you didn't have to expose yourself," he said. "The program can't afford to lose its prototypes," she finished for him. The hint of a smile touched her lips, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm aware of my value, Vance. Don't confuse me with the equipment." He exhaled slowly, nodding. She was right, she always had been. The radio crackled. "Base confirms breach at Facility 1, a voice said. "Zodiac protocol fully active. All Phoenix units to converge." Merrick leaned back in her seat, her gaze distant now, not on the road, but on something years away. "Facility 1, she whispered. "It was supposed to be untouchable." Vance's jaw tightened. They found it. For a few long moments, neither spoke. Only the rain filled the space between them, steady as a heartbeat. Finally Merrick asked, "Any survivors?" "Unknown. Comms cut 30 minutes before activation." She closed her eyes, not to rest but to remember. Faces, voices, laughter from the training bay. People who believed in the same impossible idea she had, that pain could be turned into progress, that broken soldiers could become something more. Phoenixes, reborn from the ashes of their own destruction. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had built a system designed to outlast pain, and yet here she was still feeling every bit of it. Vance broke her silence gently. "Juniper, been reactivated." That made her look up. "Reeves, she's still on standby." "Not anymore. She reported containment success and initiated cleanup. Blackwood's team is en route." For the first time that night, something changed in Merrick's expression, the faintest flicker of relief, tempered by guilt. "She shouldn't have to do that again." "None of us should," Vance said, "but we do." The convoy slowed. Ahead through the rain, a faint glow appeared, floodlights cutting through the darkness. A temporary command post. A field base assembled in under an hour, complete with security cordons and medevac tents. Efficiency born from long years of crisis. The SUVs rolled to a stop in formation. As the doors opened, men and women in plain tactical gear moved in synchronized patterns, their actions almost ceremonial in their precision. When Merrick stepped out, the rain hit her face like a baptism, cold, cleansing, real. Her limp was still there, but lighter now. Every movement reinforced what she had fought to reclaim: control. A medic approached, tablet in hand. "Commander Thorne, we need a systems check before transport. Your vitals." "I'm fine," she interrupted. "Ma'am, it's protocol." "Protocol doesn't override necessity," she said. "Where's the breach report?" Vance handed her a data slate. Facility 1. Primary research compromised. Data extraction confirmed by unknown hostiles. Internal defenses neutralized. Estimated timeline: 4 hours before Phoenix containment fully breached. Merrick's fingers tightened around the tablet. "Who knew our location?" "Only command," Vance said, "and internal staff with alpha clearance." She scanned the report, her jaw tightening. "Then either we were watched or someone talked." Vance hesitated. "That's above my rank to determine." "It's not about rank," she said, handing back the slate. "It's about motive." A nearby helicopter began spooling up, rotors cutting through the rain-soaked air. The rhythmic thump vibrated through the ground, a sound both familiar and haunting. She watched it for a long moment before speaking again. "Do you ever wonder," she said quietly, "why we keep coming back after everything, after everyone we lose?" Vance looked at her, unsure if she expected an answer. When she spoke again, her voice had softened. "It's not loyalty, not duty, it's guilt. The living always carry it longer than the dead." Her words hung in the air, raw and unguarded. Vance broke the silence gently. "Your recovery isn't complete. Command recommended another month before reactivation." "Command doesn't understand time the way I do," Merrick said. "Every second we wait, we lose something else." She turned toward the helicopter, her hair whipping across her face in the wind. The operator assisting her paused, unsure whether to help her board. Merrick met his eyes, a simple glance that said, "I don't need help." He stepped back. As she climbed in, her hand brushed the cold metal of the doorframe. For a brief second, the reflections of the diner flickered in her mind, the neon light, the smell of coffee, the voice of Juniper saying, "Trouble finds its own way in." She took a seat beside the window, watching the rain blur the world again. "Commander Thorne aboard," the pilot called. "Destination secure facility, Sector 7. "Take us up," she said. The engines roared. The helicopter lifted from the wet ground, rising through sheets of rain into the gray dawn. Below, the convoy faded into small black dots moving down forgotten roads. Merrick's watch pulsed once, a new signal. She tapped it, a brief flash of data, encrypted and silent. A message from Phoenix 2, containment successful, awaiting redeployment. She smiled faintly, the first real smile of the night. "Good girl, Reeves." As the clouds swallowed the aircraft, the light from the horizon began to shift, dawn breaking through the storm. And for the first time since she'd left the diner, Merrick allowed herself a single, fragile thought. Maybe the world still had a place for people like her. Not in peace, not in glory, but in the space between, the quiet moments where survival was the mission. She leaned back, closing her eyes against the hum of engines. And for a brief, impossible heartbeat, she let herself rest. Morning came slow. The storm had passed, but the world still felt heavy, as if it hadn't quite decided whether to breathe again. Inside the last stop diner, silence reigned. Chairs were flipped upside down on tables. Coffee sat cold in untouched cups, and behind the counter, Juniper Reeves moved like someone cleaning a grave, precise, reverent, unwilling to rush. Every trace of last night had to disappear. She wiped the counter one last time, her movements calm, but her eyes, those betrayed the truth. The kind of exhaustion that didn't come from work, but from remembering who she used to be. In the back room, a small red light blinked behind a metal grate. She knelt, lifted the false panel, and pressed her thumb against a scanner that no diner should ever have. A soft chime, then the floor trembled. A section of the pantry wall shifted aside with a hydraulic sigh, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Juniper hesitated only once, not out of fear but out of nostalgia. The diner had been her cover, her quiet, her penance. And it was over now. She descended slowly, the old steel steps echoing beneath her boots. Each step was a reminder, every piece she found was temporary. At the bottom, the corridor opened into something that didn't belong above ground, a concrete chamber lined with black servers, flickering monitors, and a table filled with tactical dossiers stamped Phoenix OPS/classified. The hum of electronics replaced the stillness of the diner. Juniper approached the central console, her reflection flickering across a screen as she keyed in her old call sign. "Phoenix 2 active." A mechanical voice answered. "Welcome back, Operator Reeves. Stand by for sync." She exhaled, "Been a while." A camera unit scanned her face, then the old tattoo on her wrist, a faded ring of circuitry encircling a feather. The symbol mirrored the one on Merrick's arm, though hers was older, etched by hand, not laser. "Status report," she said. The AI interface flickered to life, cold, efficient. Facility 1 destroyed. Data leak confirmed. Thorn extracted. Secondary safe houses compromised in 3 sectors, awaiting directive. Juniper's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Any confirmed survivors? Phoenix 4 unresponsive. Phoenix 3 presumed active, location unknown. Phoenix 1 command override engaged. Her throat tightened. "Phoenix 4, she whispered, "that's Issa." She closed her eyes, remembering the laughter of a young recruit with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. "Gone now or close to it." "Download what's left," Juniper said. The terminal began to hum louder as encrypted files poured across the screens. Schematics, mission logs, incomplete transmissions. Among them, one message blinked, half corrupted but still legible. From Commander Thorn. To Phoenix 2. If they reach you, do not wait for orders. Trust your instinct. Burn the surface, protect the core. You know what that means. Juniper stared at the words until her reflection blurred into the screen's glow. Burn the surface, protect the core. A command only 2 people in the entire program understood. She tapped a few keys, bringing up the floor plans of the diner. The schematic shifted, showing lines of hidden fiber conduits running beneath the foundation. A failsafe, one designed to erase everything if compromise was ever confirmed. Her hand hovered over the control sequence. Just one command, and the diner, her quiet life, would vanish in a controlled detonation that no one would ever question. But her eyes drifted toward a small photo taped to the console. A young girl, maybe 6, missing a front tooth, holding a fishing rod twice her height. Juniper smiled faintly, the expression both tender and hollow. She whispered, "Not yet, baby girl. Mama not done." Then she keyed in a new protocol. Zodiac Containment Phase 2. Above ground, the neon sign outside the diner flickered once, then died. Every electrical circuit routed downward, feeding energy into systems the world never knew existed. Juniper slipped her jacket back on and checked the small holster beneath her apron. She hadn't carried a weapon in years, not since the last mission with Merrick, but the weight of it felt familiar, grounding. The console beeped. "Incoming call, secure channel Delta." She frowned, "Patch it." The monitor split open to static, then a low, distorted voice filtered through. "You stayed behind." Juniper froze, that voice, calm, rasped from smoke and battle scars. "Merrick." "You're not supposed to contact this channel," Juniper said softly. "We don't have time for protocol," Merrick's voice replied. "They're not just after data, they're after people." "Which people?" Juniper asked. "Phoenix operatives, every one of us." Juniper's heart slowed. "Then they're already tracing signals." "I'm aware. That's why I need you to finish the burn." Juniper shook her head, eyes tightening. "You know what that means." "Yes," Merrick said, "but if we don't do it, they'll turn what we built into something else, something worse." Juniper clenched her jaw. "You're asking me to destroy my home." "I'm asking you to protect what's left of us." Silence, the kind that makes your chest hurt. Finally, Juniper said quietly, "Give me 2 hours. I'll extract the archives manually." 1 hour, Merrick corrected, and Juniper. "Yeah. Thank you for keeping me human when the rest of the world forgot how." The screen went dark. Juniper stared at it for a long moment before leaning back in her chair. Her eyes wandered over the old coffee stains on her sleeves, the worn floor, the quiet that had once been peace. She whispered, "You never forget how to bleed for the right reason. You just forget what right feels like." The room hummed around her, low, electric, alive. Upstairs, faint sunlight crept through the diner windows. The world outside looked normal again. A truck passed. A kid on a bike splashed through puddles. No one would ever know what slept beneath their feet. Juniper walked slowly to the base of the stairs, pausing halfway up. She looked back one last time at the glowing core of monitors that had been her secret penance, her second life. Then she whispered, "Time to go dark." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small chip, dog tag sized, with a carved emblem of the phoenix. She slotted it into the console and pressed her thumb against it. Protocol burn confirmed. Detonation timer 60 minutes. The AI's voice was almost gentle. "Goodbye, Operator Reeves." Juniper smiled faintly. "Goodbye's too final, let's call it a pause." She climbed the stairs, closing the hatch behind her. The wall slid back into place, seamless. The diner looked exactly as it had the night before, just a lonely building at the edge of nowhere. Juniper took one last look around, her hand resting on Merrick's stool. Then she picked up her coat and walked out into the morning sun. The bell above the door jingled softly, the last sound the last stop diner would ever make. Behind her, unseen beneath layers of concrete and secrecy, a soft mechanical countdown began to pulse. 59 minutes. And somewhere above the clouds, a helicopter carried Merrick Thorne toward another war she didn't want to fight, not knowing the place she called safe was already counting down to silence. The helicopter touched down just after sunrise. Gray light stretched across the tarmac, revealing a landscape carved by secrecy, concrete, wire, and silence. The facility wasn't marked on any map. No flag, no emblem, just a number on a steel gate, Sector 7. When Merrick Thorne stepped out, the wind caught her hair and threw it across her face. She didn't flinch. The air smelled of rain and fuel, the scent of too many beginnings that felt like endings. "Commander Thorne, this way," a young officer said, his voice trembling despite his attempt at composure. She followed him through corridors that seemed to hum with the ghosts of old missions. Every footstep echoed, every security door sealed with a hiss that sounded too much like a sigh. They passed a series of glass observation rooms. Inside, technicians stared at flickering screens filled with maps and coded symbols. In the center of it all, a massive holographic display of the world, blinking red across 3 continents. Breach points, targets, failures, commands waiting, the officer said, his voice lowered as if the walls were listening. "They've been debating your protocol." Merrick's gaze flicked toward him. "Debating me?" He swallowed. "Yes, ma'am. Some believe you shouldn't have reactivated the Phoenix signal." Her jaw tightened. "They're alive because I did." He didn't reply. He didn't have to. At the end of the corridor, 2 steel doors parted to reveal the operations chamber, a circular room lined with screens, satellite feeds, and faces that had long forgotten sleep. In the center stood Admiral Calder, the man who had once believed in her more than anyone, and the man who had signed the order that ended the Phoenix program 2 years ago. When their eyes met, the silence was a living thing. "Merrick," he said finally, not Commander, not Thorne, just her name. "That was worse." "Sir," she replied, her voice level. He gestured to the table. "Sit." She didn't. "I prefer to stand." Calder sighed, old weariness settling over his frame. "Still the same." "Not quite," she said, glancing at her left leg. "Some parts don't grow back the same way." He nodded. "I read the report, and yet here you are again." She met his gaze. "You built Phoenix so soldiers like me could be more than survivors, so we could still serve when the world was done with us." "And I buried Phoenix because it cost too much," Calder said quietly. "Too much secrecy, too many lives. You of all people should understand that." "I understand betrayal," she said, "and that's what this is." He didn't respond. Around them, the room buzzed faintly with quiet activity, officers exchanging glances, screens flashing with satellite telemetry. Merrick ignored it all. Her focus was fixed on Calder. "Facility 1 is gone," she said. Someone leaked our location. I know. Then you also know it wasn't external, she continued. No one outside command even had access to the new coordinates. Calder folded his hands. You're suggesting an inside breach. I'm not suggesting, she said. I'm telling you. A long pause. He looked at her, not the way a superior looks at a subordinate, but the way a man looks at someone he's tried to forget. You think I don't already know what's happening? Then stop pretending we're still playing defense, she said sharply. We're not the ones being hunted anymore, Admiral. We're the ones who got careless. A few officers shifted in their seats. She didn't care. The truth wasn't meant to be polite. Calder finally spoke again, slower this time. Who else knows about Juniper Reeves? Merrick's eyes narrowed. Why? Because she's not responding to her uplink. Merrick froze. She's alive. Maybe, Calder said softly. Maybe not. The diner went dark exactly 60 minutes after your extraction. Her breath caught the burn. He nodded, triggered from her station. Merrick turned away, packing toward the glass wall overlooking the hangar. Her reflection stared back, tired, unrelenting. She stayed behind, she whispered. She always does. She followed procedure, Calder said. You taught her that. She followed loyalty, Merrick corrected, not orders. Calder's voice softened. Loyalty gets people killed. Merrick turned back to him, eyes sharp. No, lies do. The room went still. Even the low hum of machines seemed to quiet. Calder leaned forward, elbows on the table. What are you implying? I'm implying that Phoenix wasn't destroyed because of exposure, she said. It was dismantled from the inside, one piece at a time, by someone who wanted us vulnerable. He frowned. To what end? Merrick stepped closer, her voice low and deliberate. You've seen the reports, Admiral. They're not just attacking facilities. They're taking survivors. Phoenix Tech wasn't meant for weapons development. It was meant for restoration. Human augmentation, neurological repair. Someone out there wants to twist it into control. Her words sank into the room like stones, dropped into deep water. Calder's gaze hardened. You have proof. Not yet, she said, but I have instinct. And last time I ignored that, 36 people died. He hesitated. Then, reluctantly, he nodded. You'll have what you need. But this isn't a sanctioned operation, Merrick. Officially, you don't exist. She smirked faintly. That's the only way I work. He almost smiled back. Almost. Then his tone changed, colder, quieter. If you go after whoever did this, you're on your own. I've been on my own since Kandahar, she said. I just stopped pretending otherwise. Vance entered then, carrying a new data slate. His expression was grave. Commander, we have movement near the Black River perimeter. Unmarked transport convoy heading south. No transponders. Military formation. Merrick looked at Calder. That's them. Or it's bait, he said. Either way, she replied, taking the slate. I'm not waiting for the explosion this time. Vance followed her toward the exit. Calder's voice stopped her. Merrick. She turned, one hand on the door. He hesitated. If you're wrong. Then I'll finally get some sleep, she said. And then she was gone. Outside, the hangar came alive. Engines roared to life, technicians scrambling. Merrick climbed into a transport with Vance beside her, rain beginning to fall again, softer this time, almost cleansing. She looked out the window as the facility shrank behind them. For a fleeting moment, she saw her reflection, and behind it, the faint echo of Juniper's face, smiling that tired smile from behind the diner counter. Don't you dare be gone, she whispered. Vance glanced at her. What was that? Nothing, she said, just old ghosts. He studied her for a moment, then said quietly, You know, they still talk about what you did in Helmand. She gave a small, humorless smile. They only remember the noise, not the silence after. The vehicle jolted forward, heading into the wilderness. Somewhere beneath them, Juniper's diner ticked closer to zero. And somewhere ahead, past the tree line, past the rain, waited the truth Merrick Thorne had been running from since the day she lost her leg. That the war never really ends, it just changes shape. The rain had turned to mist by the time they reached the valley. Gray clouds hung low, smothering sound. The convoy ahead moved like ghosts, dark shapes cutting through the fog along an old service road that wound through the trees. Inside the armored transport, Merrick watched through a thermal scope. 7 heat signatures, 2 vehicles, 1 lead, 1 trailing, tight formation, professional. Military discipline, she said quietly. Vance nodded beside her, eyes on the monitor. Could be a stolen unit, or what's left of one. Merrick adjusted the focus. No insignia, no call signs. They're not pretending to hide, they know we're watching. Vance smirked faintly. Bait then. Maybe. She lowered the scope, meeting his gaze. But bait doesn't usually carry that much hardware. The screen lit with a faint pulsing glow, energy signatures inside the rear truck. Merrick froze. She'd seen that pattern before. Vance, that's Phoenix Tech. He looked again, jaw tightening. Impossible, every prototype was accounted for. Except Facility One's archive. Her voice dropped. They're moving the cores. The engines groaned as their vehicle slowed to match speed. Merrick's mind raced through possibilities. If the Phoenix data cores fell into the wrong hands, it wasn't just about advanced prosthetics or neural links. It was about control, rewriting human autonomy through interface. Her pulse steadied, the calm before decision. Options, Vance asked. Intercept before the bridge, she said. That's our bottleneck. He grabbed the comm. Ghost units move to positions Echo and Delta. Non-lethal containment. We need those cores intact. Copy, came the reply, 6 voices at once, the quiet rhythm of trust. The convoy wound down toward the river. The bridge, an aging span of steel and concrete, rose from the fog like an unfinished memory. Merrick leaned forward. Cut lights approached silent. Their transport slipped off the main road, tires crunching wet gravel. Ahead, shadows shifted in the mist, operators fanning out through the trees. Every step rehearsed, every movement deliberate. Vance glanced at her, still limping. She gave a half-smile, still breathing. They exited the vehicle, boots sinking slightly into the soaked earth. The air tasted metallic, heavy with tension. Somewhere downstream, thunder rolled. Position set, whispered one of the team over comms. On your mark. Merrick crouched behind the ridge, eyes locked on the lead truck. Through the scope, she caught a glimpse of the driver, helmeted, visor down, posture too rigid. Not scared, not surprised, waiting. Her gut twisted, they knew. Now, she said. Explosive spikes fired from the tree line, tearing through the road. The first truck swerved, skidding sideways. The second braked hard, back wheels spinning. Operators surged forward like shadows, weapons raised. Hands where I can see them, Vance shouted. But the driver didn't obey. He lifted his visor instead, revealing a face Merrick hadn't seen in 3 years. Lang, the name left her mouth like a ghost. Captain Aaron Lang, once her second-in-command at Phoenix. The man who'd saved her life in Helmand. The man who vanished after the program was shut down. Merrick, he said calmly through the rain, took you long enough. Her weapon lowered an inch. You're supposed to be dead. He smiled faintly. That's what they told you. Behind him, the rear truck's doors opened. 2 figures stepped out, both wearing Phoenix interface rigs, the neural bands glowing faint blue beneath their skin. But their eyes were wrong. Vacant. Programmed. Vance cursed under his breath. Oh hell, they cloned the interface. Lang raised his hand slightly. Not clones, recruits, improved, free from pain, free from choice. Merrick's stomach turned cold. You turned them into weapons. I liberated them, Lang said. Phoenix was meant to repair the broken. I made it evolve. You rebuilt soldiers, I built survival. You built slaves. He shook his head slowly. You never understood. We keep patching the wounds but never stop the bleeding. Humanity chooses pain. I just took choice out of the equation. Merrick stepped closer, voice steady but edged. You stole our data. You sold us out. Lang's expression softened, almost pitying. No, Merrick, I saved us. The government would have buried Phoenix for good. I gave it to people who'd use it. And what do they want in return? His smile faded. What everyone wants, control. Vance whispered, we need to end this. But Merrick didn't move her weapon yet. She could still see the man he used to be, the soldier who carried her out of the desert, the friend who swore he'd never abandon the mission. Lang, why? She asked, almost pleading. You had everything we fought for, a chance to rebuild a life. He looked past her, eyes glassy with conviction. Because peace is just the pause between wars. And then the truck behind him roared to life. Move, Merrick shouted. Gunfire erupted. Muzzle flashes tore through the mist. Operators dove for cover as the rig exploded into motion, slamming through the blockade. Merrick rolled, firing twice precise shots that disabled the front axle. The truck skidded, smoke curling from its tires. Lang vanished into the haze, shouting orders. The two augmented soldiers advanced with inhuman speed, movements jerky, mechanical. Merrick fired 2 centermass hits that would have dropped any man. They staggered but didn't fall. EMP grenades, she barked. Vance pulled a device from his vest, armed it, and hurled it forward. The detonation flashed white, silent, clean. The augmented men convulsed, collapsing in the mud. Their neural bands flickered, then died. Silence followed. Only rain, only breathing. When the smoke cleared, Lang was gone. Merrick lowered her weapon, heart pounding. She stepped toward the fallen soldiers, both young, both barely out of training. She crouched beside one, fingers brushing the cold metal embedded beneath his jawline. Phoenix code, her code. She whispered, I did this. Vance touched her shoulder. No, he did. But she shook her head. He couldn't have done it without me. Her watch pulsed an incoming signal. She tapped it and Juniper's recorded voice echoed faintly. Burn the surface, protect the core. Merrick's throat tightened. She activated the burn. Vance looked toward the distant hills. If Juniper's gone, she bought us time. Then I won't waste it, Merrick said quietly. The surviving operators regrouped, weapons lowered, faces grim. The fog began to lift, revealing the twisted wreckage of the convoy. Flames hissed in the rain. Merrick watched them rise, fragile, defiant. Vance broke the silence. He won't stop. No, she said. He's too deep now. Lang thinks he's saving the world. What do you think? Merrick looked down at the mud-soaked ground, at the fallen, at the ruin of everything they built. Her voice came out low, almost a whisper. I think redemption's a word people use when they're afraid to admit they've already crossed the line. She turned toward the remaining team. Collect the cores, we're not done. Vance frowned. Where to? Where he's heading, she said. He'll go for the archive next, Facility 3. That place was decommissioned. Not for Lang, Merrick replied. He helped build it. As they moved out, thunder rolled again, echoing off the valley walls. The rain had started to fall harder now, washing away blood, mud, and illusion alike. And as the convoy reformed, Merrick's voice drifted softly over the comm, not as an order but as a confession. Sometimes, she said, the enemy you hunt is just the part of yourself you left behind. The world looked washed clean by the time Merrick reached Facility 3. What used to be a fortress of research and code now stood abandoned, half buried beneath weeds and dust, a scar left behind by forgotten promises. The sun cut through thinning clouds, gold and sharp, glinting off broken glass and rusted steel. The convoy stopped a quarter mile out. She stepped out first, slow, steady, her limp softened by years of defiance. The air was still. Even the birds had gone quiet. "This is where it started," Vance said behind her. Merrick nodded. "And where it ends." They moved in pairs through the crumbling compound. Faded phoenix insignias still marked the walls, the phoenix rising from circuitry, now cracked and peeling. The corridors smelled of oil and rain. Each room they passed felt like a memory she'd already lived. The training bay, where Juniper taught recruits how to shoot through fear. The lab where Merrick's first prosthetic had come alive under sterile light. And the observation deck where Lang had once stood beside her, talking about purpose, about making something that could outlast human weakness. All of it dust now. They reached the core chamber, a circular space with a glass ceiling that still caught the morning sun. The central console hummed faintly, running on backup power like a dying heart refusing to stop. "He's here," Merrick said softly. "How can you tell?" Vance asked. "Because this place feels awake." Her watch pulsed once, an incoming signal, not command. She tapped it and a voice came through, faint but clear. "I wondered how long it would take you to find me." "Lang." She turned slowly, scanning the catwalk above. He stepped into view, clean uniform, calm posture, no weapon drawn. The same steady confidence that had once made her trust him with her life. "You really came alone," he said, almost smiling. "You never disappoint." "I brought the truth with me," she replied. "That's enough company." He descended the metal stairs, boots echoing. "You think this is about betrayal?" "It's about choice," Merrick said. "You stole ours." Lang stopped at the bottom step, studying her face. "You don't see it yet, do you? You of all people should understand. You lost a leg and the world called you broken. We rebuilt you stronger, faster. You became proof that control works." "I became proof that pain doesn't define us," she said. "But you turned it into a weapon." He shook his head. "Pain always becomes a weapon. I just learned how to aim it." Merrick's eyes flicked to the console behind him. Its monitors flickered with data, Phoenix code, live streams, digital maps of neural networks. "You're transmitting." "Of course," Lang said. "This isn't about me anymore. I'm sending the new sequence to every active node. No more weakness. No more hesitation. A new kind of soldier, perfect obedience, perfect calm." Her hand went to her weapon. "Turn it off." "You can't stop it," he said. "You built it to survive you." Merrick's voice softened, dangerous. "You think this is survival. This is evolution." "Then why are you still trying to convince me?" she asked. He hesitated just slightly. "Because part of me still believes in what you were, the woman who stood in the fire and didn't run." "She didn't run," Merrick said, "because she still had people worth burning for." Lang's eyes darkened. "You think Reeves is worth all this? The old ghosts, they're gone. They burned themselves for nothing." She stepped closer. "They burned for you, Lang. They trusted you, and you sold that trust." He looked away, jaw tightening. "You can't build something new without destroying the old." "Maybe," she said, "but you don't get to decide who burns." For a heartbeat, neither moved. The hum of the console filled the air like a pulse. Then Merrick took a single step forward, and Lang's weapon lifted in response. Their eyes locked not as enemies, but as two halves of a broken design. "Merrick," Vance warned from behind her. She didn't stop. "You won't shoot me." Lang's finger tightened. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do," she said. "Because if you believed your new world worked, you wouldn't need to defend it." A tremor passed through the floor, the backup generators overloading under the strain. Sparks cascaded from the ceiling. The system was failing. Lang's calm began to fracture. "You're too late. The upload's at 90%. Merrick's voice lowered, steady as prayer. "You taught me one thing, Lang. Machines can't replace choice." And with that, she raised her prosthetic arm, the one he'd helped her build, and drove her fist straight into the core console. The explosion of sparks blinded them both. Electricity screamed through the chamber. The upload halted midstream, frozen at 91%. Lang staggered backward, clutching his side as alarms blared. Smoke filled the air. "Merrick," Vance shouted, pulling her away from the console. Her arms smoked, circuits seared, skin burned where metal met flesh, but she stayed on her feet. Lang fell to his knees, coughing. You destroyed it." "Not all of it," she said, "just enough." He laughed weakly. "You always were sentimental." She knelt beside him, breathing hard. "I believed we could save people. You believed we could replace them." He looked up at her, blood on his lips. "And which one of us was right?" She held his gaze. "Neither." He smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but at least I won't die a ghost." His hand dropped. The light left his eyes. Merrick sat there for a long moment, rain dripping through the shattered roof, mixing with ash and static. When she finally stood, her voice was low, almost a whisper. "None of us do." Vance approached cautiously. "He's gone." She nodded. "And so is the code." He looked around at the smoking ruins. "Then it's over." She shook her head. "Not yet." Her watch vibrated once, a signal faint, almost dead. She pressed it and a broken transmission filtered through, weak but real. "If you're hearing this, the burn is complete. I'm still here for now." "Juniper." Merrick exhaled, her breath catching halfway between relief and heartbreak. "Keep moving, Merrick," the recording continued. "Don't rebuild what broke you, just remember why you started." Then silence. Vance looked at her. "She made it." Merrick nodded slowly, eyes distant. "She always does." Outside, the morning light spilled through the cracks in the walls. Dust swirled like smoke. The storm had passed for good this time. They walked back through the halls, two soldiers in a world that would never know their names. Every step echoed through the hollow compound like a heartbeat that refused to stop. As they reached the exit, Vance asked quietly, "What happens now?" Merrick paused at the threshold, looking out over the valley, green hills washed clean by rain, sunlight breaking across the horizon. "Now," she said, "we disappear again, let the world heal without us." He nodded. "And the Phoenix Project?" She glanced down at her burned arm, at the faint glow still pulsing beneath her skin, the last living ember of what they'd built. "Phoenix was never a project," she said softly. "It was a promise." They stepped out into the light. Behind them, Facility 3 began to crumble. The fires died, leaving only silence, the kind that carried peace instead of pain. As the wind lifted, Merrick turned her face toward the horizon, eyes tired, but unafraid. The world had burned, rebuilt, and burned again, but she was still standing. And in that moment, in the quiet, in the aftermath, one truth rose above all others. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.